Hi, everybody. This is Marlene with Miami Ghost Chronicles. How are you doing today? And today I have a guest that, well, she's part of a group. Okay, they're called Hunters of the Unknown. Okay, and they're based out of the Southwest Chicago suburbs. And they are what's called a paranormal travel adventure group, and they investigate historical mysteries, legends, unusual places, cryptids such as Bigfoot, UFO sightings, and hauntings. And who I have with me is Cyndi Vojvoda, who is the team founder. And she's a registered nurse by day. I love this because this is like the practical by day and then the paranormal or the unusual off time. But anyway, like she says, nurse by day and paranormal investigator by night. And one of the things that I like about this is that they are not limited just to one part of the paranormal. If it's mysterious and unusual and falls into what's called the paranormal, they're going to go out there and investigate it, which I love that. So how are you doing today, Cyndi?
Hi, I'm doing good. How about you?
Fantastic. Great. Thank you so
Great.
much for coming on to the show. And like I told you, one of the things I always ask my guests at the beginning is, what happened? Did you have an encounter or any unusual event as a child or as an adult that got you interested in the paranormal?
No, I would say I don't have the typical story. A lot of people grow up in haunted houses or have some sort of thing happen to them that gets them into it.
Right.
I've really always been interested in the paranormal.
Okay.
I remember I did a term paper on the Bermuda Triangle in high school. It's always been an interest of mine.
Okay.
What kind of got us into starting a group was my son likes ghost hunting and all of that. He was probably about 14, I'd say, at the time, kind of young. We would always watch Paranormal State together. He was really into it. And a lot of these places you can't take children, basically.
Right.
And another aspect he was having night terrors when he was
Really?
young, which I don't know if you know what a night terror is.
Yes, I do know what night terrors is. I haven't experienced it personally, but I know that it's
very scary because it's not a nightmare.
Yes.
When he was young, he would wake up screaming bloody murder at the top of his lungs.
Wow.
Like somebody was killing him is really what it seemed like. You couldn't wake him up. He was still sleeping when all of this happened. It would go on for a few minutes or whatever, and then he would go back to sleep, and he would not remember any of it.
Wow.
Somebody told me that he would eventually grow out of it, which thank goodness he did. He did. He doesn't have them any longer.
But it's got to be really as a parent, it's got to be so nerve-wracking.
Oh, yeah, because the first time it happened, I called an ambulance. I had no idea what was happening. I thought he's having a seizure or something.
Yeah.
It's very traumatic and very scary because there's nothing you can do.
Exactly.
Nothing. You can't wake them up. Nothing. You just kind of got to let it play out.
Exactly.
That kind of, got us to thinking, what is this? And around that time, too, I went and interviewed with another group, to be part of their group. Both me and my husband did. And I think they were just looking for one person. So they didn't choose us. Okay. But I thought, well, I can do this myself.
Exactly.
Why not? I'll just do it myself. And that's kind of when Ghost Hunters was on TV. And, you could see, people actually do this.
Exactly.
And so that's how we started with me, my husband, and my son, who was young at the time, but he would go on investigations with us. A lot of places would let him come if both his parents were there.
Right.
And come to today, he's 19 now. He's still part of the group, and our group has expanded to 7 people.
That is fantastic. And you know what, personally, I think that must be so neat as a kid. I mean, I'm sure there's kids out going, man, I wish my parents would take up ghost hunting.
Well, it's funny. I have twins. So
oh, my God. Okay.
Also, my son's totally into it. My daughter wants nothing to do with it.
Isn't that funny?
I've got both sides of the coin there.
Isn't that, my God, that is...
I mean, she's afraid to tell her friends what we do because she's, afraid what they're going to say.
It's like, oh, she's either going to have you have cool parents or what?
Right. You have crazy parents, one of the two.
And you
Yes.
know what? When you're that age, you get really, really sensitive about stuff like that. Really sensitive
Yeah.
because
And
you're
we've been
thinking,
doing this for so long now. It's kind of a part of our lives.
yeah. And that's usually what happens. People don't realize that. Um, and I've talked about this on some of the shows, and I'm sure you'll know, when you really get into it, you realize that, yeah, every once in a while you have investigations that are exciting and, in the sense that things happen, but there's other times that you go to some places and it's kind of dull. Things sometimes, it's not what you see in all the
Yeah.
reality shows where you see
Yeah.
things
And
happening
that's not
constantly.
why I wanted our group to be different than other groups in that we investigate anything strange, paranormal, and we also throw in the travel and adventure part of it
I
too.
think that's
So we do a
fantastic.
lot of traveling, and my favorite investigations are the ones that it's an adventure to get to the location.
Isn't that great? I think that's fantastic
So it's
because,
really fun.
well, you know what? And if you think about it, it's almost like and believe it or not, what they call today nowadays legend tripping, where there's a lot of people that, I mean, they don't belong to a paranormal group, but they plan their vacations around this.
And I've always done that, even before our group.
Yeah, yeah, I've
I
done that
just didn't
myself.
realize what it was, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. You did, and I know exactly what you mean, where it's like, well, so we're gonna stay at a hotel. We'll go check out and see if it's got a reputation for being haunted, that kind of deal.
Oh, right, right. Or I totally would look for a haunted hotel in the location we're staying, specifically so we can stay there.
Yeah.
We took a
Yes.
vacation once to Roswell, New Mexico, so we
Oh
could
my
go to
God,
the
how was that?
festival there. Oh, it was great. The UFO festival is pretty cool.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah, I think they even have. I mean, it's because for so many years it was a little bit on the low key side, but it's taken off as far
I
as
think
the
it
town.
certainly has. I'd love to go back. It's been a long time since we've been there.
Yeah, it's like now it's become uh like you said, like the place to go. In other words, like if you're gonna go, might as well, because it's before. And I hate to say it, but a lot of people don't realize. Once upon a time, when people would say they're gonna go to one of these UFO or you'd kind of would get a look like you're gonna go. Where are you
Yeah.
going? What are you gonna do? Really? And it's like, yeah,
Well,
really.
they're acceptable now, but depends who you talk to, I guess.
Yeah, I know. Now it's more mainstream, and I think a lot of people are coming around to the idea that it's fun. And so once you started doing, whether it's investigations or visiting them, what happened? Did you ever have any experience that you could say, wow, I cannot account for that? I go through my checklist of what could it possibly be.
Yeah, I think I've had a lot of different experiences. One of the most significant ones, I would say, is we were investigating at Thornhaven Manor, which is an old mansion in Indiana.
Okay.
There was four of us, me, my husband, son, and another investigator. We were sitting at the bottom of the staircase, and we're doing an EVP session,
Right.
asking, "Oh, I can see you now."
Yes, I know. I've been working on that behind the scenes. Finally.
Okay.
So anyway, go ahead. You were saying
Yeah,
that.
so we were doing an EVP session, asking questions. First, we heard a woman's voice
Wow.
with our own ears, a disembodied voice, a woman's voice say help. And then we had a flashlight setting on the staircase. It came on, and we could see this mist form in front of our eyes. And we're all like, what is that? And we even had a camcorder on us.
Really?
The camcorder did not record the mist. It only recorded us freaking out, like, what is this? And that was pretty significant. And it also was interesting that the flashlight came on, because had it not, we would not have seen anything. We would have been sitting in the dark like most people do
Yes.
investigate. So I think having a light on, is kind of a good thing, because you probably miss things sitting in the dark.
Oh, of course. Of course. I mean, there's a. I mean, and that's the thing that sometimes people don't realize when you're doing, work, in this field that some things sometimes are really subtle in the sense it's not necessarily in your face or loud. Sometimes, and it can be
Right,
disturbing, especially depending on what it is. But it can be really. I mean, and if you're not paying attention, that's
right.
why you see a lot of people say, "Oh, well, when I got home and I looked at the picture, or I looked at the video, or I did this, right? That's when I saw it." And yeah, sometimes you couldn't even if you were paying attention, but a lot of times it's just it escapes people because,
Yeah, you can easily miss stuff.
oh yeah,
I mean, this mist was just, that's what it was, just a mist.
well, and you saw basically what you're describing is some type of intelligence behind it, is what you're saying.
It seemed like, because we heard the woman's voice right before that
Wow,
also. So it was kind of two things happening at the same time.
that's incredible.
Yeah, so that was
And
pretty.
when and a lot of people, they and they're, I guess what have you ever had any overall? I think that doing what you're doing is very fun. You have a good time, and at some point you even get to um, learn a lot of neat historical stuff about places that normally you wouldn't. But have you ever had any encounters or any experiences that you say, you know what, I'm going to grab my crap and I'm getting out of here?
We did. Yeah, there was one time we did a home investigation on the south
Okay.
side of Chicago,
Okay.
and we were in the basement. There was three of us in the basement. I was standing next to the furnace. Okay, and the staircase to the basement was behind me, and I felt like somebody had come up behind me, had like come down the stairs,
Okay.
had come up behind me and put their hands on my shoulders,
Oh my
like they
God.
were standing behind me. When all this is happening, there's a big bang on the furnace, and also a baby stroller that was down there comes rolling across.
Oh my
And I
God.
was so scared. I couldn't even
Oh
talk.
my
I couldn't
God.
even form words. I was just so scared. But then once I got over all of that, I'm like, oh, that was kind of cool.
I know, but
Because
still, it doesn't.
I didn't feel like it was threatening, like it
Right.
was there to harm me. I felt like it was like a jokester, like somebody trying to scare me.
Right.
And then, come to find out, more about what was going on there. There was a father that had died, father or grandfather, older man
Okay.
that had died and had a bar like in the basement. And that's kind of what his characteristic was. He liked to play jokes and stuff on people. So it totally made sense.
That's
But at
what.
the time, it really scared me.
Can you imagine? Let me tell you something. That's the kind of, and a lot of times when people do this, they kind of like almost after you've been, like I said, if you've gone to a few that nothing's ever happened, or you
Hmm.
think, oh, maybe when I get home, maybe I'll hear an EVP, maybe whoever,
Right.
and then you see that like the timing on some of this stuff is. I know there's the skeptics out there that could give you a million different reasons how I could, and you sometimes it's almost like you have to be there. Realize the timing on this. I'm sorry, is just too weird.
Hmm.
Okay, for it just to be coincidental, or
Right.
a raccoon in the furnace or something. Because
Oh,
I've
right. There was like three things going on at one time,
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, and yeah, I mean, I've had those experiences myself where it's like there's just no way that this, unless of course that's what you're hoping is that you're going to get is just like a, you know, and this is the thing, and a lot of people, a lot of people that I've talked to that have been doing this for a while, they'll tell you, you know, depending on, like you said, in this case, you felt, well, this spirit is like a trickster, like he wants to like see me jump, maybe or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, that's what it felt like.
Um, but sometimes, depending on what's there, if it's an intelligent haunting, of course, sometimes there's only so much that they could do
Right.
to communicate. And to us, it might seem frightening because let's say they drop something, but maybe that's the most they can do to get your
Right. They
attention
got
if
to
they're trying
save
to
up their
communicate with you.
energy to be able to do something that significant.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it depends, on the interpretation that you want to put on it. But yeah, and that's the thing. I laugh sometimes. You see these paranormal investigators, something happens and they're like ready to leave, and it's like, wait a minute, that's what you're there for. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's okay to get
Right.
startled.
Yeah,
Of
it does scare you at first, but then when you get over it, you're like, oh, that was really neat. That was really
Yes.
something.
Yes. It's like, wow, the for real thing. And people
Yeah.
just don't realize that, when you have something like that, like I said, your instant reaction is that startle reaction.
Right.
But then, depending, of course, on the feelings that you get, that's like, and like you were great. You realize this is somebody that's trying to like hoping that I'm gonna, like run
Hoping
screaming
I'm
from down
going to
here.
run. Yeah.
And you were like, no, I get where you're coming from. And yeah, and sometimes, and then, you get the other hauntings, even though they're intelligent, sometimes they're on their own loop in the sense that they're just so caught up in what they're doing that they're totally unaware that someone's there. And
Mhm.
then you get the residual stuff, which is like the certain smells and things like that. And I'm going to ask you, how about UFOs? Have you had any, have you seen any? Because now, I mean, I've always been interested in UFOs, but especially after that, that they kind of released, they let the cat out of the bag,
Right.
that they
Right.
actually admitted what everybody knew, which is that the government had been actually putting money into
Yeah.
investigating.
But they're
Uh,
hiding secrets from us. Yeah. Big
yeah, I
surprise.
know, and it's like, and I have, I have one of two theories on that. I have one as to why they would want not keep it from us. One, they're afraid of it's, like one of those things that once you tell the lie, then it gets away from you, and then you're
Mhm.
kind of scared once you tell everybody what you've been lying about, so that they're, and they'll maybe try to pass it off as we were trying to acclimate the population to the possibility that, we have had contact with extraterrestrials, that, or that they're afraid of once they do come out and say that, and then of course everybody's going to ask, well, what do you know? What is it? What is it? That they have to admit how much they don't know, and that they're afraid that people will kind of wig out, because let's face it, it's going to be bad enough that they finally admit to it, but can you imagine when they admit that despite all the hoopla, how, they always say, well, we've got their technology or they've helped us, that we really don't have as much information as everybody thinks. So we're kind of almost in that kind of at their mercy kind of thing. And like Stephen Hawking, he said, we got to be careful, because usually this usually ends up where the less, how can I say, not the less intelligent, but the less advanced society or cultures always ends up being victimized by the culture or the civilization that's more advanced. So we got to be careful when we do this, meeting of the species or whatever we want to call them.
Mhm.
So can you imagine if the government ever comes out and says, yeah, it's true, we've had, from Roswell or from wherever, let's not even go into ancient aliens, and everybody, of course, and then they have to admit, yeah, but we don't know as much as we want to say we do. We only have sightings of aircrafts, all these ones that like they were showing that pilot.
Mhm.
Um, we only have X amount of proof that we know it, or maybe some, but there's a lot more that we don't know. In other words, that we don't have really a good idea or grasp of what their capabilities are, or what their intentions are towards the humans. And I'm telling you, I think that would worry people a lot more than just besides knowing that they exist. So I don't know. I don't know which way this is going to go. And then there's another school which thinks that there's the government, and I'm going to all the governments, but let's say I'm going to say the United States worldwide, but they say we know a lot more than we've ever admitted to. In other words, that we've had like what they call the encounters of the fourth kind, which is not just a sighting. We've actually had the meeting, like the.
Mhm.
I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. I've got I have seen a UFO,
Oh my God! Let's hear this. What
which
happened?
is pretty cool because this happened recently.
You
So this
did.
is kind of the first time that I've actually talked about it.
Okay.
And our oh,
Don't worry
sorry.
about it. Let me tell you something. My phone is a Wookiee going
Okay.
off, and that's gone off at other times, so don't worry about it.
And also, the best adventure we've ever been on
Okay.
was we went out by Area 51. So
Oh,
two different stories there. Yeah, so that was really fun too.
okay.
The UFO I saw, and this is interesting too because it was me and my husband together, and we saw two completely different things.
Really?
Which is very strange. So we were on Mackinac Island, which is in the Upper Peninsula. Is it? I don't know. It's in Michigan.
Right.
It's an island in Lake Huron. We were there for like a paranormal event, actually, and there was
Okay.
a meteor shower that night. So we went outside. It was like midnight. In the middle of the night, we went outside to, watch for meteors.
Mm-hmm.
This meteor shower. And so, we're looking at the sky, and my husband was watching me. He's like, "Do you see that?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he said he had been watching it for a while. And what I saw was it wasn't like a silver disc ship or anything like that. It was more like organic. It was almost like this orangish. It wasn't like a thing. It's very hard to describe, I guess.
I'm gonna interrupt you really quick, and I'm gonna ask you because I belong to MUFON, and I also belong to a local group down here in Miami that every once in a while we'll have MUFON come in and do presentations. But one time
uh-huh.
we had this lady. She described it. The way she told me. She says that she goes, "I know exactly like what you just said. Sounds really weird, but it looked like a jellyfish almost. It looked like not hard. You know how you always think
Right,
of an aircraft as having sharp or rounded edges, but
right,
very identifiable. Is that
right.
something like what you're
It,
describing?
it is because it wasn't a ship. It
Wow.
almost like it was itself. It was like an organic living thing in itself, is what it seemed
Wow.
like to me. And it was like orangish. You could see, and it was huge. I mean, I'm talking huge. And it went from one end of the sky all the way to the other.
Oh my.
And what my husband thought he saw was more like a pterodactyl, like
Isn't
a
that
thunderbird. He's like,
wow?
he thought it was more like a thunderbird.
That's incredible.
And I'm like, it's like we kind of saw two different things, but it was definitely we couldn't identify it.
Okay. And it's
And
like,
I
yeah,
know
enough that you're like looking at it and going, okay. And I know,
it was a really neat experience. The Northern Lights are up there
uh-huh.
also. It
Okay.
was in the middle of the sky, so I know for sure that's not what it was
Right. Yes,
because it
because you're
went
always going to
one
have
end
those that
all
are
the way
going to
to the
say it's
other.
yeah. Yeah, I know exactly where that you're going to have the ones that are going, "Oh, you sure that it wasn't, some type of in other words that it was nature." It's like doesn't always have to be
Right.
nature.
No, I couldn't have been the Northern Lights because it was literally in the middle of the sky.
Wow.
And yeah, it was huge. That was a very neat
And you
experience.
said you had two experiences
But
or
the other one was more of our investigation out by
okay.
Area 51.
Okay, and what
Um,
happened with that?
I don't think many people do. That was more like the adventure itself. Area 51's in the middle of the desert in
Yes.
Nevada.
Yes.
In order to see the base, there is one last place you can see the base. Oh my goodness. My phone. And I have it on vibrate, but yet
No, I
it
know.
goes to the computer. Okay. So there's one last place that you can see the base, and it's called Tikaboo Peak, which is a mountain.
Okay.
In order to get there, you have to take this 4x4 dirt road, like 20 something miles into the desert.
Okay.
And there's not exactly directions to get there. So,
Wow.
you're kind of winging it.
And
You
this is
don't
at
really know
night?
where you're going. No,
Oh, okay.
no, I would not go out there at night
Okay.
at all because you would totally get lost for one thing.
That's
Very
what I was
easy.
about to say. I was going to go, man, if you went out there at night, you're brave. I mean, really brave.
But yeah, so you take this 4x4 road, 20 something miles into the desert to the base of the mountain. And then you have to hike up the mountain to the top
Oh,
in
crap.
order to see the base, which is in a valley, which is surrounded by mountains. And it was the hardest thing that we've ever done. I
It's like,
mean, we're not the greatest in shape either. So
but you were
that was
thinking, I better see something once I get up here. I know what
I
you
mean,
mean. I know.
the elevation alone,
Yes, that's right. I hadn't
was
thought of
just
that.
kicking our butt because we're so out of breath because we're from Chicago. We're
Uh-huh.
not used to, these mountains. And there's not like a trail that's going up there neither. I had GPS coordinates and we're like, I think we're going in the right
We'll
direction.
find out soon.
And you had to hike up the mountain. Was the whole side of it was like this loose shale. So
Oh,
it was like really hard too. It was really hard,
can you
but
imagine?
this was a whole day event too. It took us the entire day to do this, like a good 8 hours
Yes.
or something, but once you got to the top of the mountain, and I think people do spend the night up there.
I was gonna say, it's like, man, once you go out there, it's like,
Spend the night. So, I wouldn't be driving through those roads or hiking at night, but, if you did want to spend the night up there, great place to star watch and watch for UFOs. You can see a runway. You can see the roads going through the middle of the valley.
wow.
You're still, kind of, I think you're still 20 something miles from the base at that
Okay.
point.
Yeah. But still, I guess because from its vantage point is why you're able to see what you can see.
Right. Because you're on top of the mountain. Yeah. And it's very, very difficult to get to. And so
Yeah.
most likely you're not going to run into anybody out there.
Right. It's like,
Yeah. But you can see going there, on top of other mountains like these, they're probably listening to you, or, the
bet.
people at Area 50, or they know you're there. I'm sure they do.
exactly. I'm sure.
I'm sure they're monitoring that entire area. And, they probably figured we were harmless enough, I guess.
It's like, oh, yes. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. I hope they don't bust their ass. I'm sorry. It's like,
Right. You're hoping you don't run into any of those camo dudes or anything.
but yeah, it's, I love that kind of thing because you made a good point. Not everybody does decide to do that, especially if they go out to Area 51, despite taking the trip out there. Once you tell them, yeah, you want a good vantage, you got to go up that little mountain. It's like, what?
Right. It's pretty dangerous. You're in the middle of nowhere. Literally, nobody's going to find you if something happens to you, probably for a long time.
One time I was interviewing this gentleman who had been a border patrol agent out in the mountains in Southern California called the Otay Mountains, but they would patrol at night. And he was telling me how dangerous it is because a lot of times because of their work, they have to go out there like with no lights on. And they've had, even with their experience and the kind of equipment and vehicles that they have, they've had a couple of them go off the sides of the roads because it's at night. And if you just your tire goes off a little bit off the edge, especially if you've gone up there in a vehicle, that's it. You're gone. So going up all those, besides the thin air, is if you're trekking up, it can be very, but like, in a way, it's like, what do you say? Let me check this off my bucket list. So
it kind of was, because we had actually been out there. That was the third time we had gone to try to do this. The first time we went was in like August. It was 120 degrees out or something.
It must have been really hot.
We were dying. We were like literally dying. And we didn't know where we're going. You're kind of just in the dark, don't know where you're going. So we turned around, came back. We went back another time, which was in April. I thought April would be okay because we're going for it's not going to be 100 degrees out.
Right. Okay.
And we get, close to the base of the mountain, it starts snowing. And I was like, really? and then come to find out, we went into Rachel, Nevada. As the little alien in there, and they have a restaurant and a hotel kind of there too, motel, I guess. The guy said there's snow on top of the mountain. You guys never would have made it. So I'm like, okay.
So yeah,
didn't know that. So this was the third time we went. We went, I think, at the beginning of June. I figured no snow. It may be hot. It wasn't. The weather was good for us. And I was determined we're going to make it this time. This is the third time. We fly out to Las Vegas. You have to rent a 4x4 vehicle too.
Right, we're going to do it.
Get there, so it's quite a trip. And I was determined we're making it this time. I don't care, and we did.
And was it worth it then?
It was worth it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
see, that's the
was
thing.
it was one of those bucket list adventures that,
But
yeah.
and to give you credit, a lot of people after the first time that it didn't work out, like you said, you went out there, oops, wrong time of year. They said, forget it, or that like, but no, you stuck to your guns and you went out there.
Yeah,
That's great.
third time was a charm.
That's so. Let me ask you, what do you think as far as the now that they kind of said that? Do you think that we have had contact more than just sighting? Let's say,
I do.
UFOs.
I do. Yes, I think they're just not telling us that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes I want to say, well, you know what? How long could they just be content with seeing crafts that maneuver or go at speeds that they know that we don't have any technology for? At some point, and it makes you wonder: was it a scenario like Roswell? Where they had a crash, or
Hmm.
was it a meeting, an agreed upon meeting?
Right. And it could be both.
Yeah, it could be both. I mean, like I said, um, in some of these meetings that you go to, you'll have a lot of, and I think that's happens also with all these people, especially way back then, whether you were in the armed forces or after a while, people don't say that unless they want to deep six their careers. If you were a
Right.
policeman or a fireman
Yeah.
or armed forces or an airline pilot, uh, after a while, you realize, and even if you come back, your boss, if he's your friend, will tell you, "Shut up! Don't ever get this out because for the next 20 years, you're going to be known as the guy that saw the UFO." In other
Right. I
words,
think, yeah, they don't talk about it
yeah.
for sure.
And I think
Because,
what's
yeah,
happens is what's happening now that a lot of these guys that now that they're retired, it doesn't matter to them. Even though I have heard that sometimes even that haven't said stuff because sometimes they're even they think it might hurt their pensions. Like somebody is going to mess with them. That's
right.
you know
Right. I think the government has put that fear in.
yeah, like hey, even though you retired,
Yeah.
remember either
They
you
could,
you sent
yeah.
you either you sign some type of non-disclosure form or whatever. Who knows? So yeah, I think there's still a lot of people out there with a lot of secrets that are saying, "Yeah, forget it. I'll let Fred come out and tell the
Right.
story of what we came across whenever it was, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, whatever the case might be." Uh, and well, since your group does everything, have you ever gone Bigfoot hunting or Squatch hunting or Squatch?
Yeah. Yes.
How's
We've
that?
gone on three, well, actually three now. We just did one last year too. Yeah, we did three different Bigfoot hunts,
How was that?
actually. We've never run into the creature, unfortunately,
Mm-hmm.
but we did have two experiences. One was in Minnesota.
Okay.
We rented this house that was pretty remote. It was the only house on this lake, so there's nobody for miles. Me and my son were in a canoe, and we were just taking the canoe kind of around the lake,
Okay.
and we had rocks thrown at us.
Really?
And that is one of the claims of Bigfoot.
Yes. Yes.
Throws rocks. And I mean, you're in the middle of nowhere. There's literally nobody there, and it's all private property too. And that was very strange. I mean, can't say it was Bigfoot, but maybe.
You know what? And that's over here in Florida. We've got the skunk ape,
Hmm.
and I was thinking. I went even though he's been seen like up in Central Florida. I live very close to the Everglades, so I contacted this group that supposed well they have airboats and things like they're out there in the Everglades, but they have this thing that they do skunk ape headquarters, and I contacted them because I was like, hey, what stories do you got, and would you be willing to take us out just to see what if we find what we can find? And it ended up being more like a tourist trap, so I haven't really run across any group down here anyway that's really
Hmm.
serious about it. Um, because I know some of the people have cited it. It's been like coincidental. They're going and they'll see something out. They're on a road. Let's say they're driving and then they'll see something off, or
Hmm.
maybe perhaps a hunter sometimes. But unfortunately, down in this area, we don't have anybody that
Oh
looks for
yeah.
them on an ongoing basis just to see what they run across. Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, up there you're close by, like you said, Minnesota, and
Minnesota, Canada's not that far.
yes,
Yeah, those are kind of big areas
that they're
for
there, that they are, that you could say,
things.
okay, these,
Right.
yeah, they're
Yeah.
they.
Another time, me and my husband were in Michigan in the Upper Peninsula at Craig's Lake, which is a really remote lake that
Okay,
you can hike around. You probably will be the only people there,
okay.
because it's very remote. We're hiking around the lake and we heard a Bigfoot howl,
Oh,
and it was so scary. It just the it was so loud, and just the sound of it, it was just you knew it came from like a humongous creature.
right. This is not
You
the, yeah,
just
not a loon.
or not a bear or anything like that. I mean,
Exactly.
it was just this massive sound that was just, it just shook you to your core. It was very scary because we
Uh-huh.
were out there by ourselves. There's nobody, and we hear this, and we're like, "Oh my God, do you really want to run into that creature that
Right,
made that sound?"
Eh, that's the thing, you hear some, and some of these people that go out and, like you said, in the woods in the middle of nowhere, they're out there
Yeah,
doing all these things to
and
call
we
it.
do
I'm like,
that. And we do go out at night in the woods looking for Bigfoot, or Beast of Bray Road. We've done
oh
that
my
one.
God, yes, I saw that. You guys, what with? Wait, let's finish up with Bigfoot, and then we're going to move off to the Beast of Bray Road because I think that's so super interesting. Because in a way, they're both cryptids, even though the Bigfoot has
Right.
got a much more, it's seen all over the
Yeah.
place.
Much more popular.
But and I know a lot of. Don't get me wrong, I do think of Bigfoot as I don't think of him as trying to go out there and kill all the humans he comes across. I don't think that's the case. But uh,
Right.
I was talking to a gentleman who he's a Sasquatch. His name is Steve Coles, and we were talking about that. Yeah, his experience. They're omnivores, and where they don't go around killing humans, but
Hmm.
if they run and they, in other words, that he's had scenarios where they've gone onto people's farms and gone after calf and things
Hmm.
of that size for food. And I
Right.
said, well, do you think it's because it's an older or an ill, member that? And he goes, no, they are opportunists. Uh, they get their food where they can. So sometimes you have to think. And we also thought a lot of times that they're closer than you think. It's just that they're so good at adaptation, at blending in or camouflaging themselves,
Right. Right.
that sometimes they're
Yeah.
much closer than you think, especially if the wind's not blowing in the right direction, which they would know what to do. That they might be looking at you and you would have no idea that they're
I think they've
observing
been
you.
here a lot longer than we have. Any-
Yes.
But I do have a theory about all the cryptids, I think,
Go ahead.
can kind of be lumped all together.
Okay.
I think that they are interdimensional beings,
Oh yes,
that
yes,
they come from a different dimension.
yes,
And I think that's why they're more elusive,
yes.
'cause they come and go.
Hmm.
And I kind of think all the cryptids fall into that. That's my opinion.
Do you think it's because? Do you think it's just that every once in a while there's what they call a rip that's only open for X amount of time, or just that they have the ability in and of themselves to travel between dimensions?
It could go either way, I think. And I think there's certain areas
Hmm.
that are more prone to that. That maybe, I mean, they call them like a window area,
Yes.
where maybe there are portals to another dimension,
Hmm.
and that's where a lot of the sightings are, in certain areas around the country.
Well, I think it's how some, especially maybe 100 years back or less, when we didn't have as much advancement with photography, where you would have sections of certain parts of the country or a town or city where they would go through all these months of sighting this really weird creature, and then it would disappear.
Right.
And of course,
Right. Maybe that door shut.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
And then that was it. It would be maybe 2, 3, 4 months, maybe a year the most, and then that's it.
Right.
Okay.
Like Mothman. Mothman was there for a certain period of time, and then he was like gone.
Exactly. And even though they say that he's been seen at other that, and I've always thought the same thing about Mothman, because there's, when you get into that Mothman thing, it's more to it than just citing it as, you know, how supposedly if you cite it, it's a portender that something horrible is going to happen. But a lot of people that you talk to that have had sightings, there's almost like a psychic paranormal thing going on, how
Yeah,
it
it's
affects you.
way more than just a cryptid, I think. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
With Mothman.
And there's all these Mothman sightings in Chicago now.
Yes. I
You know?
saw that. I
Heard
saw that
Yeah.
in the newspaper. I think it
Yeah,
was the
it's
Chicago
big
Tribune.
Big thing around here is the Mothman sightings. But I
And
don't
if
know.
you go
Kind of
by,
what I think about that is I know people have said they think they're a hoax, or, you know, oh, something bad's going to happen because, you know, Mothman's being sighted here.
right.
I almost think it's more of a misidentification. My husband saw in our neighborhood this like massive owl.
Really?
Like it was huge, which I think somebody could mistake that for Mothman. And he's like, you know, it was so big that it was scary, and he would, you know, wanted to come back in the house and stuff. And I'm like, oh, we need to get a camera out there and see what this thing is. But, you know, I don't think it's Mothman. I think it's really probably more a misidentification of a creature.
Could be.
You know,
Could be.
living animal, like a large owl or something.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that they don't really stick around to really take a good look.
Right. They're getting like a 2-second, you know, viewing of this creature, and because they've heard, you know, oh, there's been all these Mothman sightings around here, that must be what it is.
Yes, it's like, yeah, I'm not gonna stick around and like really take a good look. Like that was, yeah, I could see that happening. And
Yeah.
but then you never know. I always, you know what? I always leave a little bit for the what if it's, you know, what if there is something there, you know.
Right.
You don't ever
right.
want to think of it because,
You
and I
never
don't
know.
know, because I guess I'm thinking, I mean, I've been up to Chicago. My son was in the Navy and he trained there out of the base that's,
Mhm.
you know, about 40 miles away. So I've been there a couple
Yeah.
of times. And I know inside Chicago proper, but I imagine what, if you go a little bit outside of Chicago, you would get owls that big, or, because I'm always thinking of Chicago as in the city.
Right. I mean, there are owls around here. I
Really?
mean, maybe this one, yeah, there are owls around here. Maybe this one is just, you know, larger than your average owl. I don't know. I don't think it's a hoax. I'm not really buying into the whole Mothman thing either, I guess.
Yeah, the owl on steroids.
Right.
Yeah. Now let's go on to Bray the
Oh, the Beast of Bray
oh
Road.
my God, yes, yes.
Yeah, that's an interesting story.
What happened? You actually went out to the location?
We did. There are these woods. Kettle Moraine Woods is the name of the woods that there have been a lot of sightings in. And we rented a house
Okay.
that was actually right across from the woods, so it was perfect.
Wow.
We could stay in this house, and we just walked across the street, you know, to the woods. And yeah, we did do a night investigation.
Okay.
We did out in the woods at night, which, you know, it's a little creepy, a little scary. We really didn't find anything at all on the Beast of Bray Road, but we do have something coming up next month.
Okay.
Hopefully the weather holds, because it is February in this area. It could be bad. But there's somebody who contacted us from that area who's a local,
Okay.
and said that they've seen, you know, the creature, and they go out looking for them in the woods. And so we're going to go up there next month, and we're going to
Okay.
interview this person, and they're going to take us to their hot spots where they've had.
Wow. See, that's the ticket right there. You've got a local, and that's really what it's all about.
Yeah, so that'll be pretty interesting, and it'll be in the middle of winter, which is
Yes.
different. We've never done a hunt like that in the winter, but, you know, tracks would be good if there's
Yeah,
snow on the
Of
ground.
course. Absolutely.
There's not leaves on the trees, so you can see in the woods pretty well. So
When was the last sighting, official sighting of somebody saying that they saw it?
I mean, I'm not for sure when, but I do think they still have sightings once in a while.
Yeah.
To this
And-
day.
I spoke to a gentleman. His name is Jim Smith. He's out of Alabama, and he's had the Bigfoot Society since like the 70s. He's been doing it for a really long time, and he was telling me, you know, that at some point, you know, every time that they've got people that are going down the road in their automobile and they see something weird, and in that stretch of road, I guess that's known for Bigfoot, they bring him over to his house.
Oh,
And he says that he's had people, he says, look, I can't, I wasn't there, but they're so scared. He says that some of them will even tell him, sir, please, do you mind if we stay here until it's daylight? Because we don't want to drive back in the dark.
yeah.
And I'm thinking, the cops are like thinking, well, what do you want us to do? We can't, and he says, and he tells me, he says, I don't know what they saw, but whatever it is that they think they saw, and he says it's been more than one person.
Yeah.
They're scared. They're really, really, truly scared of what
I
they
could
saw.
totally imagine that. After just hearing that Bigfoot howl
Mm-hmm.
and just imagining the creature that was behind that noise, that would be very terrifying, I think.
Right. And you said you were in a canoe on a lake, right? When you heard...
that was when the rocks were thrown.
Oh,
I'm
sorry, when the rocks were...
The other one, though, we were hiking. We were just hiking around the lake.
And again, and you posed a very good question, which is like, do I really want to have a face-to-face with whoever?
I know that's kind of iffy, but we kind of don't think that it's going to be, terrifying and stuff when we're out there. I mean, we still do it.
Oh, of course. Like I said, I don't think there's anybody that ever does any type of investigation of anything that you go through that fear point, especially when you're like, okay, there's something coming up, or I'm hearing something, and then you you stop yourself and you say, okay, but that's what I'm here for, and you push on through because
exactly, that's exactly what we're there for. So we're still going to do it.
We're still going to do it. Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, have you ever had anything on any of these encounters that you could say something followed you back home? Something, for example, besides the paranormal or the ghost stuff, I've had some people tell me that, things, even if it's not malicious or bad, they do feel like sometimes after an investigation, they do have things coming back with them. And I've even had, like I said, like I said, when I stay in these meetings afterwards, after the meeting breaks up, that everybody just gathers around and some people leave and other people start talking. And I've talked to so many people that have had, for example, UFO sightings, that they'll tell me that later on they start experiencing things on a paranormal or psychic level in their homes.
Yeah, I've heard that too. But I don't think we've had anything like that. We haven't had anything follow us home or anything like that, no.
Okay. And because it's almost like, especially, I don't know, is there anybody in your group that's sensitive or psychic or just...
No, we don't have any psychics.
Okay. Or sensitive. Sometimes I say sensitive because sometimes the word psychic has the wrong connotation. Right. It's just somebody that picks up on things a little bit better than others.
I mean, maybe sensitive, I would say. Okay. I would say, yeah. But
would that be you, or is there somebody else in there that...
Well, I mean, I almost think, too, that some of us have been doing this for so long that you get attuned to it.
Yes, you do.
So something's going to happen, you kind of know. You kind of know, you kind of can feel it.
Right. And the reason why I was asking that is that sometimes usually the people that are a little bit more sensitive, it's almost like if something's there, if you've gone especially to a paranormal investigation, and they desperately want to communicate, and they kind of realize this person is the one that's going to be the easiest to get across to. Sometimes they're not bound to the place, and they kind of go along hoping, that they're going to be able to connect with this person maybe when they're asleep, when your defenses go down, and get through to you. And that's, sometimes eventually, like I said, they go away. It's not because it's anything malevolent or bad or anything. It's just that they're just hoping that they can make contact with that one person, whoever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
But and then you have the other people. Some people have said, "Oh yeah, after I came back, then I'll have all these weird things going on." And I mean, significant stuff like all of a sudden it just transplanted from where they went to their homes. And it's like, oh boy.
Yeah, we always do protection prayers.
Yes.
Whenever we do an investigation before we leave, we tell the ghost, you cannot come with us. You have to stay here. Yes. And I guess it's worked for us because we really haven't had anything like that happen.
There's a lot of people that don't take those precautions, and in other words, they don't take the precautions because even though they're doing this, they don't think in a way.
They don't think it's going to happen to them.
It's going to happen, or it's real. It'll be like
it's such an easy, simple thing to do.
Yes.
Too. So whether it works or not, why not?
Have you ever? Because I know Chicago's got so many places that have a history of being haunted. I mean, God, even before, I mean, everybody sometimes thinks of Chicago as like when Prohibition and Capone, but
Yeah, the
there's a lot
mob.
of places there that predate, you know, the G-Men and Al Capone days. There's a lot of things that have happened around Chicago.
Yeah, there is a lot. I can't say we've investigated a whole ton in the area we live in.
Okay.
Actually, I mean, we've been to Bachelor's Grove Cemetery, which is, one of the most popular cemeteries.
How was that with Bachelor's Grove?
Bachelor's Grove, I think, is way overrated.
Okay, I'm glad to hear
It's
that.
it,
No, when I say glad to hear it is that, don't get me wrong, I've been doing this since the 90s officially as an investigator.
Mhm.
So there's so many places that are so hyped that I
Yeah,
say either one, whatever's going on there has long ago dissipated, and all it's basically it's just rolling along on hype, or what's there is very subtle or insignificant, or the timing it's got to be like just right. Otherwise, it's not. And I don't. That's when you say that I'm like, yeah, if it is, it is. It's
yeah.
over. It's overrated
I
in the
think
sense
it's
of
really
haunted.
overrated. If you've ever seen anything on TV on it or something, it seems
Yes.
like it's in the middle of the woods.
Yeah, it
And
looks like yeah.
it's not. It's in a suburb of Chicago,
Okay.
which is the cemetery itself is right next to a major road.
Really.
So, I mean, you do have to take this path into the woods to get to the cemetery. It's not real long. It's not like a
Okay.
hike or anything.
Okay.
And you can literally, I actually, a few years ago, we went and I did a video of, it's near kind of near O'Hare. I did a video. You can see the airplanes flying overhead.
Okay.
You can see the highway
Yeah.
from the cemetery, all the noise
And
and
I was
everything.
gonna say that right there contaminates. So just
It
about
is.
anything you could do.
Totally, totally. You could never get a good EVP out of there because
Hmm.
there's just so much noise. And not to
Exactly.
mention, there's so many people there usually. It's like Grand Central
Really?
Station through because it's so popular
Yeah,
and
that's a
it's so
problem.
easy to get to,
Yeah.
too. It's very easy to get to. It's just in the suburbs. It's way overrated, in my opinion.
Well, and and let me ask you, and the reason why I ask is I'm a big researcher also. I'd like to find out what's the truth behind the story. Sometimes, like you said, it's like there's no truth to it, or it's like very minimal. Sometimes it's pretty accurate, and then there's others that sometimes you do the research and it's much worse. Because I've heard that part of the haunting that takes place there has to do that at some point, besides being a cemetery, that they were dumping bodies out there. Is that
And there's a
accurate?
pond there that supposedly Al Capone,
Right.
yeah, they were dumping bodies in the pond. I mean, I've heard that too, whether it's true or not, or whether
Right.
we can even know if it's true or not, I don't
Right,
know.
like let's face it, nobody was going to write that up in the newspaper because, yeah, if
But yeah, I've
yeah,
heard that too.
if you value your life, you're not going
Yeah.
to absolutely say nothing. So, yeah, that's one of those things that you wonder where the truth starts and you know, where the hype ends. And
And where it gets added on to as the years go by.
yeah,
Yeah,
of course, and like you said, and you're absolutely right. When you look at it on TV, it makes you look like you're in like a wooded area.
it does. It is in the woods, but it's also next to a major highway too.
Yeah, but that's a problem. That's a problem as far as if you're trying to gather
And
proof. It's like
airport close by. Yeah.
plus, um, like you said, when you get a bunch of people running around somewhere in your vicinity, even if they're other investigators, forget that also. Even if it
Oh,
wasn't next to a major highway,
right. And
and you
usually the people are there, they are looking for ghosts or something.
yeah, but can you
Yeah.
imagine? Yeah, you think you're captured, but it's a guy talking off on the side on his cell phone.
Right.
Saying, yeah,
Right.
forget
Yeah.
it. It's like yeah, I would love to go. Personally, I would love to go just to go.
I mean, you got to visit it once,
Right, absolutely. But no, when I was there, I didn't have the time, and I took like the one that takes you by Hull House, the one on
Oh,
the
yeah, one of
Demon
those
Child. It
tours.
was like that was like I did the tourist thing.
I've been on that one before too.
Yeah, and also what as a matter of fact, it was it wasn't even a walking tour. It was one of those where basically you got on and off a bus because the
Mhm.
distances were so long, and
Right.
uh, And where was it? The other building, the one that oh my God, it escapes me now. The one that Candyman, the projects. Oh my God, ooh, it'll come to me. But anyway, yeah, and of course, again, that one with Whole House. I'm not saying it's not haunted, but I don't think it's by what they think it is. The demon
Yeah,
child that.
that's not too exciting to me, I don't think.
No, it's like. Now let me. And I know that you're a nurse. Have you ever had any experiences while you're at work?
Not really, not really, but I can say that I find interesting. I'm a home health nurse,
Okay.
so which does we do some hospice work too.
Right.
So I
Exactly.
mean, a lot of my patients end up passing because they're
Mm-hmm.
older. I can always tell when it's going to be their time to go because they always usually start talking about people that have passed. Like my sister came and visited me,
Okay.
and the sister's been dead for 5 years or whatever.
All right. Yep.
Or yeah, so a lot of them they'll start talking about that these relatives that are dead have come to visit them, and they'll usually be gone shortly after that.
And you know what? You have a very precise insight on that
Hmm.
because, like you said, these are different people. You it sounds like you might have been visiting them before, and then all of a sudden they start. And then, in other
Right.
words, this is the common denominator that you see. Like you said, they're referring to people that are dead.
Right. And I think those people come back to help them
Sure.
transition.
Exactly.
Is what I think. Yeah, right. A lot of my patients I see for a long time, sometimes years.
Okay.
So I really do get to know them,
Mm-hmm.
and then yeah, at the end, you
Right. When all
know,
of a sudden their conversation starts changing and they're talking about what they normally wouldn't be talking about or referring to things, you're like, okay. And then, and like you said, maybe at some point you even know enough about them or their family that you know who are the relatives that are
right.
deceased, a
And
husband
when,
or a wife or whatever, another
and
family
when they
member.
say they're ready to go too,
Yeah.
they say they're ready.
Yes.
I think that will to live has a lot to do with it.
Oh, yes.
The
Yes.
the minute you give that up, it's your time to go.
Well, and I think also sometimes, I think, and I've spoken about this on other shows, some people, depending on their upbringing or their religious beliefs, they're ready to go, but sometimes they get scared of that judgment or, and almost
Right.
like that, the ones, especially when you have the living, tell them it's okay, like you're going to be okay, because sometimes they're never worried about it until right then and there when they're going to die, and then they start thinking about what if of all the bad things they did, when in reality maybe they weren't as bad as they think. But they start
Yeah.
thinking, I'm gonna go to a hot place, or whatever, or things like that. People, I think, get scared. The as far as the willingness is they're willing, but there's also sometimes fear comes in where, or they don't know, what's waiting for them on the other side. I've heard sometimes people, especially if they're kind of agnostic or they don't have much of a belief in the afterlife, they kind of run into that problem a little bit when
Well,
they're
that would
there,
be, yeah, that would be a little, depressing that
where it's
if you
like, I
really
hope I
think
was right, or you know, what if?
this is
Yeah,
it, when I'm gone, there is nothing,
yeah, exactly,
yeah, I don't want to
exactly.
believe that.
So that's yeah, I could that I think yeah, and that's why I asked you. I didn't know what setting you worked in, but that's really interesting what you said as far as like it's okay that you could say, okay, well, one patient could be delusional, maybe they're getting some type of medication, or maybe they have some type of brain
Right.
disease where they're seeing the dead, whoever. But when you start seeing it in different patients,
Hmm.
different
Yeah, it's
whatever's
a
going
pattern
on,
sure.
yeah.
For sure. That happens over and over again.
And you would think, okay, if they're going to be hallucinating, why won't they hallucinate with a living relative? Like somebody maybe they haven't seen for a while, or a friend, or you
Yeah.
know, somebody that
I
I wish I could
think
see,
they
or
really see these people. They can really see them, that they're there,
yeah,
there to help them, I think.
yeah, I believe that. I absolutely believe that. I think, which by the way is a beautiful thing when you think about it, that when you're
Yeah.
ready to pass on, you're going to have people that love you and know you waiting for you to tell you,
Right.
hey, come on down, it's okay. And that's another theory that I've run across for as far as a lot of intelligent hauntings. Everybody always thinks of it's got to be a tragic, violent death, uh, that creates a haunting or a spirit that's
Mhm.
earthbound. But I think in some cases you do have sometimes some spirits that they kind of like die alone or confused and things like that, and they kind of hang out a little bit because I've heard sometimes that they missed the bus. Sometimes, let's say if they were heavily medicated or anesthetized, or let's say they were in an accident and they were unconscious and then they pass away before regaining consciousness, that sometimes they kind of like they're self-aware and they kind of miss the part where I died.
Hmm.
And that's why you have some what they call, those crisis apparitions, like, when somebody dies or right after they die, that people that maybe haven't seen that person will see them or witness them or smell their perfume or things like that. Sometimes it's because they want to say they're okay, but sometimes it's because they're kind of like hoping that somebody's going to hear them or see them, because they kind of like takes them a little while to catch up and realize,
Yeah.
okay, maybe that thing I don't remember, the last thing I remember was driving down the road, for example. Maybe that's what happened, or that I've heard of, or that they attend their own funerals and that's when they really catches up to them. They're like, hey, that's me in there.
Whoa.
So,
Hmm.
yeah, I think there's a lot of different reasons sometimes why intelligent hauntings end up taking place and things like that. And so you've got that investigation coming up um, with that local, which I think has got
Yeah.
to be so.
Yeah, that's in February. Yeah. Pretty interested to see, what he has to say, and it's going to show us where he goes to hunt the Beast of Bray Road.
Let me ask you, I think, isn't it Wisconsin where they've also got sightings of the dog man?
Yeah.
Have you ever
Dogman,
been,
Wisconsin and Michigan too.
have you ever done anything like that? Have you ever gone out for any of those?
We've never done the Dogman in particular,
Okay.
but Dogman, Beast of Bray Road.
Yes. Right,
Could
I
it be
know.
the same thing? I don't know.
Well,
Of course, they think the Beast of Bray Road could be a werewolf. So,
right. Like
yeah.
down here, in the South, well, down in Louisiana, they have what they call the Loup Garou, and
Oh, yeah.
they have the Lizard Man in South Carolina, and all these different cryptids. And
Right.
yeah, that one sighting I was reading about, that the one in the Lizard Man that happened in South Carolina that was really close to a swamp. I was reading about the kid that saw it, and I was thinking, this sounds like this kid really had an experience. I mean, I don't see how you could mistake what he described as a bear or any other type of animal.
Right. Lizard Man. Yeah. I
It's
don't know
like,
if it's gonna alligator on its hind legs. I don't
yeah, I was
know.
like, this
Which
is
I
like,
don't think happens. So,
yeah. And because if you read what he said, what he even went to the police with, I'd be like, no, this is, I don't see how anybody could say, besides saying, okay, he's lying, which
yeah,
there was a lot
mistaken.
of detail. It was like, there's very difficult to think that he could mistake this for anything else but what
Right.
he's saying, a big man-sized lizard that tried to claw through the roof of his car.
Yeah, that's a little scary.
Yeah, I know. And I don't know if you remember, but when the eclipse was coming around, they were telling everybody to keep an eye out for Lizard Man in South Carolina.
They were, weren't they? Yeah, we actually went as a group down to Hopkinsville, Kentucky to watch the eclipse.
Really? Oh
Yeah,
my.
that was supposed to be one of the best places to see it, and
Okay.
it was. It was great.
It was great. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was
it
like,
was.
I know that some of these places they were sold out like way before, because there was,
Yeah.
and I think that
Uh,
no, I stayed put down here in South Florida. It was like, because I mean, that what I would think would be, it's like a once in a lifetime thing sometimes, depending on how frequently that happens. But, according to everybody, the doomsday, the earth was going to end. You were going to see Lizard Man. It was Nostradamus predicted it. What else? Oh, a bunch of
yeah.
stuff was going to go.
Yeah.
But
It
anyway,
was just
it was.
just a big party, I guess.
But anyway, Cyndi, thank you so much for spending this time. I look forward to catching up with you. You post, I have the link to your website on the credits of the show. But anyway, what is the website that if somebody wants to go and
Sure.
visit you
Our
guys?
website is www.huntersoftheunknown.com.
Okay.
We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram at Hunters Unknown on all three.
And you're going to post what? Do you post what happens after these when you go out there? Do you
We
put
do.
up any
That's all on
pictures?
our website. Yes.
Okay,
After we
perfect.
go through, all our footage and everything, I always do a video and put it on our website. Yes. So all our past adventures and everything
Is on there.
is on there. Yep.
Fantastic. And then they can, whoever wants to find out what's going on with this soon to happen investigation, they
Yeah.
can catch up on with you on social
Right.
media. Perfect.
Yes. Yep.
Again, Cyndi, thank you so much for spending this time. It was fantastic. And I'm going to keep abreast of
Great.
that because I have an interest in that.
Yeah.
And lucky
Definitely.
you're up there. I'm too far away.
Oh.
Otherwise, I'd be taking trips up there.
Well,
But
yeah. Thanks for having me.
yes, no, believe me, I'm going to keep I'm very interested in those type of cryptids. I really, really am. Okay, thank you
Okay.
so much, darling.
Sounds
Take
good.
care. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
So, I think it was so interesting. I love a paranormal group that does everything because a lot of times people think of the paranormal as strictly being a ghost hunt or, spirit contact or something like that. And in truth, uh, paranormal is, and I've said this in other times, it's a whole slew of things, whether it's cryptids or UFOs or, um, I mean, to me, there's so many things out there that are unknown versus known that just can't be explained that I consider paranormal. That doesn't have to be, like I said, the typical what everybody thinks of. And part of it we have to blame on media as being paranormal. I hope you enjoyed it. I loved speaking to Cyndi because, like I said, especially for those people out there that don't belong to a group or, the legend trippers. Uh, I think there's a legend tripper in all of us, even if we don't belong to a group. And the only thing I could say is always be prepared to capture something, even if it's with your camera or anything, because you know what? 9 times out of 10, these are the people that have the encounters or the sightings or the experiences that, you could have a bunch of paranormal groups. Again, speaking loosely, paranormal group going out there trying to capture. And here you get two legend trippers going out there and they do it because they're there. Yeah, they're going out there, but they don't take it. For lack of, but they don't take it so seriously. They're hoping they do, but if they don't, they're out there to have a good time. On the flip side of that, you have to be a little bit careful. And by this, I don't know if like last year, there's a cryptid or a legend. It's an urban myth called Goat Man, and this is in Kentucky, and he is seen on a railroad trestle, uh, a very high railroad trestle that basically crosses this ravine. Okay, it's a matter of fact, it's pretty close to Waverly Hills Sanitarium. And I believe early last year, there was a couple. The story goes that the goat man is seen. I mean, there's different versions of it. He's either seen under the trestle, the railroad trestle, up on the top with a hat. I mean, there's 3 million versions of it. But bottom line, a lot of people go up there to see it. And it's not the first time that somebody's gotten killed, and that's exactly what happened. Because what people don't realize is for a train, you would think you would hear a train coming really far away, and you don't. You kind of become aware of it right when it's on top of you, and that's what happened. There was a young couple out there. As a matter of fact, they were going to Waverly Hills later on I think in the evening. They had gone out there to try to find Goat Man, and they had walked out on the trestle. And once you're up there and a train's coming, you've got 3 options. Jump, and it's like a 100-foot drop to the ravine. 2, you get hit by the train and run over by the train. And 3, if you're smart enough, you know how to get off and kind of like hang off the side kind of deal. But you got to be really nimble and to do that. And unfortunately, the young lady, she fell. The guy that was with her, he was okay, but she got killed. And I mean, that's the downside of being a legend tripper. And by this, I mean that you got to be aware of where you're at. It's all great to have a good time and hope you have an experience, but you got to be aware of your surroundings and where you're going. And she was saying, even when you go to some remote places, You got to be aware where you're going. And I've said my other shows, I have a personal weapon I carry with me at all times when I go to some of these places, especially if they're remote. I hope I never have to use it, but I'm always aware that I might run into somebody and it won't be the cryptid I'm looking for or ghost. So yeah, for those legend trippers out there, personal safety, self-preservation's always got to be number one on your list. And that thought about nothing's ever going to happen to us. It always happens to the other person. No, by this I don't mean to be paranoid, but personal safety always number one. Even if you're a paranormal investigator, always number one. And I even say that I see a lot of people, sometimes even these urban explorers. I've been doing some urban exploring lately. You got to be really careful when you go into some of these places. Either safety of the structure or safety of who you're going to run into when you go in there. And you'd be surprised sometimes who you find in these some of these abandoned locations. Okay, especially it's almost like the flip side, like you're glad that you don't have a bunch of police trying to kick you out. But the flip side of that is that if that location is known for not having cops either looking at or inspecting it or riding around, guess what? The people that don't want to deal with police, usually that's the place they go to. The word gets out, so you got to be real careful with that. So anyway, guys, I hope you love the show. I liked it, and I like I said, interviewing Cyndi. I think her story of how she got involved in this is neat. And subscribe to my channel. Hit the like button if you're viewing us on YouTube. Please subscribe to me if you're listening to the podcast on any of the platforms like Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, podcast. We're all over the place. Just subscribe to us so that you will get notified every time that we release a show. Also, catch me on Facebook and on Twitter. That's where I live stream the most often. And a lot of times also, I give you a heads up about what are the new shows or the new guests that I'm interviewing. So I'm hoping that you guys also like and follow me on Twitter, on Instagram, across the board. If you look behind me now, you will see all the places that we're at that you can find Miami Ghost Chronicles Stories of the Supernatural at. So guys, again, my true believers, don't forget, send me your story. Go to MiamiGhostChronicles.com, look for the tab that says Submit a Story. Okay, submit a story. And you can either send it in writing, you can video yourself, and if not, we'll get a hold of you. We'll just send me a little description of what your story's about, and I will find a way of either interviewing you on Skype or on the phone, whatever. We'll work it out. So again, guys, thank you so much for being part of my audience. Take care.